Beautiful, isn't he? Nico is the name, I believe. Nico was in service or alive from 2000 to 2007. A very touching portrait painted, no doubt, by a skilled police officer, most likely his handler. What up, guys? Total Control 871, and I'm here in the Pleasantville Police Department. I have just filed the complaint against the careless driver who ran the red light. Excuse me, I don't exactly plan on being in Pleasantville a whole lot for very good reasons. I don't like the city, even before my tumultuous dealings with law enforcement. However, today's blog does indeed talk about my dealings with police, Pleasantville Police, that go back far, far, far before Officer Burke. Most likely before Officer Burke was even an officer, and before Nico here was probably even born. Back in 1980, 86, 87, a very, very short version of the incident. I was a foster child. Foster parents, your cliche scenario, taking in hundreds, if not thousands of dollars per month, multiple foster children, and of course the foster parent does everything except what they should with the money. They went on elaborate shopping sprees for themselves, not for us, the children. Dined at fine restaurants, ate steak, the best of everything, while we children were given an economy-size case of ramen noodles. That is your breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Make it last. And of course it did not last, and of course many of us foster children went hungry in those scenarios. And on one particular night where I had gone hungry, it had been about 2 days since I had eaten, and the hunger drove me to the Pleasantville High School, Pleasantville High. There was a gymnasium door that was only chained shut and not locked shut. Now granted, I suppose technically what I committed was B&E, although I didn't actually break anything. I entered the gymnasium, and upon entering the gymnasium, I immediately began searching for the cafeteria where I could find something to eat. I did not enter the high school to vandalize, to, steal property other than something to eat. Again, long story short, alarms were tripped. Police were alerted, and they came looking for me. Now, unlike I am today, at the age of, 14, 15? 14, I think it was, or maybe younger. And I was very, very thin. Matter of fact, so thin that the folding partition of the gymnasium that went from the rafters down to the floor, it was completely folded and put away. And I was small enough that I could fit and hide in between the folds of this partition. Now, the police officers couldn't find me when they went looking, but the K-9 officer, it didn't even zigzag. This dog made a beeline straight from the door of entrance directly to me. And I don't fault the officer for for how he apprehended me initially. Like I said in a prior blog, I do have a large frame. At the age of 14, I was about 5'8", maybe, you know. I definitely could have been an adult. He pulls me out. He begins to wail on my chest. He's like, you know, punching me in the chest. Given today's climate of shoot first, ask questions later, again, you know, thank God I wasn't shot and killed. And the dog is on my leg. Speaking of which, let's have a look. It's been ages. I don't know if the camera can pick it up. Got some subdued lighting here and here. I think right there. And a few other bite marks. The arrest was fairly routine as far as an intruder goes that a canine officer goes to apprehend. But then things became dark and twisted. While lying there in the fetal position, screaming, begging for the officer to call the dog off, and of course offering no resistance whatsoever, the officer did call the dog off. And after I was in handcuffs, the officer stood there behind me, marveling at his arrest, at his accomplishment, and he took delight in it. So much delight that he gave the attack command again, and the dog was once again upon my leg, chewing and tearing into my flesh. At this point, I do not think that this officer thought that I was an adult. I'm almost certain that he knew that I was a child, but still, he took delight in doing what he did to me. He eventually called the dog off and helped me right myself to my feet. He then walked me over to the exit of the gymnasium, and the door was still chained shut. And I could see on the outside, because the door was being held open, you know, about maybe a foot wide. And the officer asked me, "Is that how you got in?" And I said, "Yes." And he said to me, "Well, that's how you're going to get out." While handcuffed behind my back, he ordered me down onto my knees, and he forced me to crawl with my hands cuffed behind my back, to not even crawl, I guess it's worming at this point, to worm my way through this door and its chained open partition. And when I wasn't moving fast enough, he saw fit to once again bemuse himself as well as his compatriots who were on the outside of the door. He gave the attack command again, and the dog again tore into my flesh, and everybody howled and laughed. And there was also black officers there. I believe it was a detective, a rather robust, heavy-set detective, and he was black, and he belly laughed the loudest, if I'm not mistaken. They all took great delight in my suffering, my torment. So I guess one of the many reasons that I'm giving this blog is that I do indeed would like to give a bit more context as to, well, frankly, why I just don't like police, especially Pleasantville police. Now, like I said, that was, oh good gracious, over 20 years ago, maybe 25 years ago that incident occurred. And the Well, the high school doesn't even stand any longer. It's long since been bulldozed to the ground. And, well, life has gone on, and I'm quite sure that K-9 officer, its handler, and the dog itself, well, I have no idea whatever became of the handler, but the dog itself is most likely passed away. Passed away like our Nico here. I do my best to bear law enforcement no ill will, but it is law enforcement that make this exceedingly difficult with their draconian and terroristic ways, stripping away civil rights. Now, I understand that those officers had a job to do that day, and I understand that things could have come out far worse. And I understand that, well, I should not have broken into a school, even if it was to find food to eat. There were a lot of things wrong that day. A lot of people could share in the blame. Total Control, 871.